They depended on me, and I failed them. I failed these people that looked up to me so much. These people that believe in me. I failed them. While all my friends were downstairs celebrating, drinking, and partying and making memories for the rest of their life, I was upstairs having a full-blown panic attack. And it's not because of the money. It's because of these people depended on me. They looked up to me. And I know that that's life-changing money. I know what it means, the $2,000 to $4,000 to $6,000, what that is to an average person. I know what that is. And so I had this opportunity to make all that money for an average person, and we missed it. After 1 year of driving a Ferrari and M4 like they're stolen, and transparently vlogging how I run my business from inside my $1.5 million New York City condo, which is paid in cash, a lot of you guys are always asking me, how did I get rich? And I get it. How did a retard like me manage to make $10 million semi-legally before the age of 25? Today is the day I share my brutally honest story, a story with lots of failure, bribery, cybercrime, a mysterious death.
What do you want from me? I give you the APIs. I sent you like the entire shit this morning. Like I've been helping Sinister for months.
Yes,
I've been
and you tried to betray me behind my back. But mostly how someone who is below average intelligence somehow managed to escape the rat race, and how you could too if you just stop listening to these fake gurus.
This guy makes money off people, not off stocks.
We just went over that.
Well,
I actually just posted
what's your response to that?
I mean, people, so look.
I have no bullshit course or high-ticket coaching to sell you. Trust me, I hate these fake gurus just as much as you do. Speaking of which, how about I show you my tax returns? Something that they'll never do. I'm not here to sell you coaching. I'm here to give you some bitter truths and hard pills to swallow that you might not want to hear, but they're gonna help you make millions. But not until you place the cornerstone, a concept which I will explain soon. Aside from the tax returns for credibility, a lot of you guys probably recognize who I am. Yes, I am Keith Adam. I am that sneaker guy, that sneaker reselling guy that's made hundreds of thousands of people a lot of money, and consequently a lot of people like me, but even more people absolutely despise me, some of which even frequently send me death threats for. Honestly, I always like to think of myself kind of like a Robin Hood. I see myself as taking from the rich, you know, the people who could afford luxury goods, and giving to people who are willing to hustle a bit more to make a couple extra $1,000s, and that's precisely why I love what I do. I also play cat and mouse games with billion-dollar anti-bot companies like Akamai, Cloudflare, and more, and that also includes big companies like Nike. Honestly, I would not be doing this if I was not making money, but the reason I was so successful was because money was never my primary motivation. My primary motivation and what drove me so far was a genuine desire to help people. And if you adopt this same mindset, you too are going to make millions of dollars. You need to genuinely want to help people rather than just focusing on chasing money. Before we begin this story, I think it's very important you know you're not wasting your time, because time is money, obviously. So here's my tax returns totaling over $4 million in net profit up to 2024. Yup, in 2019, at just 18 years old, I made $500,000 in profit, and the next year at 19 years old, I made over $1 million in profit. That's profit, net income that I pay taxes on, not revenue. That is cash in my pocket, which I then put towards investments like Nvidia and other assets like this condo I'm in right now. Eventually, you will see my tax returns from my capital gains on many of these investments, but in the meantime, you can see some of my losses, those of which I documented on the first YouTube video on this channel. Yes, I lost hundreds of thousands of dollars in the stock market in great pain and great agony because I didn't know what the fuck I was doing. But I did manage to leverage the situation for some tax benefits, and there were some valuable lessons learned too, so I take it as a win. I like to see the positive in things even when they're not positive. And also, you won't see any hypothetical crypto payments that I accepted from one of my products, an anti-bot API company, for reasons you'll understand very soon. But let's start when I was just 13 years old. 13-year-old Keith. I was entering middle school, and I remember seeing a bunch of kids wearing these nice Jordan retros, and me, I had a pair of D Roses with holes in them from skateboarding. Not only that, but I remember one day I went to school, and my friend Josh, who's still my friend today, started calling me out. He said, "Hey Keith, is it raining out today?" And I was a little confused, and everyone started laughing around him, and he pointed at my shins, and I looked down, and I realized my shins are showing. I had outgrown my pants. You see, my parents were never poor. You know, I didn't grow up in the slums. I'm an average kid, like a lot of you guys, which is probably why you'll be able to relate to my story. But I was never broke, but my parents believed in teaching me that if I wanted non-necessities, non-survival things, any kind of luxury, I had to earn it myself. I had to find a way to make money myself, and I am very grateful that they raised me that way. But let's take a step back. Before middle school, my friend Ryan gifted me his old metal detector, and together we would go metal detecting, and I would literally dig in the dirt for coins. Now, we were searching for old coins, and I even found a gold ring too, but throughout this period, I managed to save up a couple of dollars in these coins. Yes, it quite literally started with me digging in the dirt for coins. Now, in middle school, with just a couple of dollars to my name, how the was I supposed to buy new pants and new shoes to compete with everyone else? And by the way, now, I'm not materialistic at all, but as a young kid, I didn't understand this way of life. So at the time, I was too young to work a job, so somehow young Keith had to find a way to make some money. I used to play this video game, Madden, and I learned a bunch of nano glitches in the game, which allowed me to win a lot of wagers really easily, and then I was able to sell coins on the market and make a little bit of money. But the amount of time I was investing into this game for the amount of money I was able to sell these coins for, and it was a sketchy process. They had to list a bronze card for like 1 million coins, then I had to buy it for 1 million coins. It was a whole process, not really worth my time, so I needed something else. I decided to start selling candy out of my locker. And so I was selling Mentos and mostly Sour Patch Kids gum. These were the hot sellers. And I was making about $50 per week on average. And consequently, I would often have to serve detention, but I really didn't care because I was making $50 per week. Now, when I had $200 saved up, I finally decided, okay, now I'm going to buy my favorite sneaker. I decided I was going to buy the Bread Jordan 11. Now, this was a sneaker that would usually resell for $300. I found some Instagram sellers selling it for $200. A too good to be true opportunity, but little naive me didn't know shit. So I PayPal gifted this Instagram seller the money, and in return, I got a poorly drawn penis via Kik messages. And then he blocked me. So that was a lesson learned. Now, jokes aside, because that was all I had, I know 200 doesn't sound like a lot, but that was absolutely devastating to me. I had served a lot of detentions for that. I had risked a lot of my reputation amongst my teachers and having to go to the principal's office a lot for that $200, and now I was back at zero for absolutely nothing. I mean, it's the same thing as if you had made $1 million and you're going back to zero. You had lost everything you worked for, so that was pretty devastating, but I decided I'm going to pick myself back up and I'm going to start selling candy again. Eventually, I did make enough money to buy another sneaker, but this time I didn't go to an Instagram scammer. This time, me and my father went to camp outside a Foot Locker for a limited release. When we finally got the sneaker, we came outside and I was planning to keep this sneaker because I liked them. but somebody in line offered me a little bit more than what I paid. I can't remember if it was $30 or $40, but it was a lot more than I would typically make in a single day of selling candy. And so I took the offer. You know, it seemed like a no-brainer to me. And it was at that moment I was introduced to the concept of supply and demand, a concept that would fuel my multi-million-dollar business years later. Instead of seeing sneakers as fashion and really caring about the materialism of them, I started seeing them as opportunities to make money. And so I started reselling sneakers regularly. I would go to sneaker shows like Soul Exchange and SneakerCon. I would resell to people in my school, and I would regularly have to deal with messaging strangers on Kik and Instagram DM. And it taught me a lot about human nature. It taught me how unreliable a lot of humans are to their word. It taught me how often people will try to deceive you, and even how grown adults will take an opportunity to try to rob a young 13-year-old kid. A story for another day. These countless nuanced experiences with negotiating and doing these transactions taught me a lot of nuanced, valuable things that I didn't even learn in a book that I was reading when I was 15 years old called The 48 Laws of Power. This is a book that I recommend to all of you and was absolutely instrumental in my understanding of the laws of human nature and understanding how to manage a community of thousands of people who are watching your every move. And if you have to, you know, punish someone for doing something wrong in a community, they're ready at every single opportunity to call you authoritarian. So that book definitely helped me in managing a massive amount of people while also being likable by all those people still, because it's a very nuanced thing, and it's something that deserves its own video, honestly. But before I turned 15, I saw the movie Interstellar, and this movie really touched me emotionally. Not only that, but it literally inspired me to want to be an astronaut. I wanted to go to space. I still want to go to space, but I knew to be an astronaut, I needed to start early. I needed to take private flight lessons early so I could get my private pilot's license. And so I began saving up money for these private flight lessons. And so at 15 years old, I was finally old enough to actually work a job, and I decided to start working at a place that a friend's mom was actually able to get me a position at, because normally most places wanted you to be 16, but I was able to be 15 and kind of be off the books here. And so this place was called Mama Vittoria. It was a catering hall where I was a busboy, basically just cleaning tables, cleaning dishes, you know, doing a lot of that basic handwork. And on Saturdays, I would work 12 to 14-hour shifts, and every other day, I would be working regular 8-hour shifts after school and whenever I had any kind of free time. Do you guys remember that viral Ferrari video with the bike? Yeah, that bike video is me biking home from this very job.
I'm just saying how I feel, man. I ain't one of the cosmetics. I ain't go to hell, man. I guess the money should have changed them. I guess I should have forgot where I
Now, with that money, I was able to start my flight lessons at just 15 years old. But this was not sustainable. I was literally working 24/7 and just barely scraping by to afford these flight lessons. And so I knew I needed to do something different, because I was doing this while at the same time trying to balance school. So I needed something to get me a little bit more money to make my dreams come true. And so I took a little bit of a risk. I put the flight lessons on pause, saved up some money, and I started buying DJ equipment. And I started DJing some parties after I learned, because I always had a passion for music as well. I eventually made back my investment, but throughout this process I had fun, but I realized I couldn't scale this as well because I could only be in so many places at the same time. Now, around this same time, I was watching sneaker YouTube. These were basically just some YouTubers who would talk about reviewing sneakers, talk about collecting sneakers, going to first come first serve events, and just the sneaker culture in general. And I decided I can probably do that too. I just kept putting it off, and I'm sure you could relate to this. You know, you have an idea, but you just don't really have the courage to go ahead and do it, and you're afraid of what everyone's going to think about you. And it wasn't until I saw this YouTube video from one of my favorite bodybuilders. His name was Vitruvian Physique, and we all have that YouTube video. You know, we all have that one YouTube video which changes our life, and this was that video for me. This was the video that changed my life. I don't know what it was. He was saying something along the lines of stop waiting for tomorrow and just do it today. And he was talking about living in the safety, like the normal life that people get a job, you know, work your 9 to 5, and they still end up unhappy. And something about that it just really clicked with me, and it really resonated with me. And literally that very day, because I didn't wait for tomorrow, literally that day when I saw that video, I got home from school and I filmed my very first YouTube video and posted it. I was so excited to see if maybe it went viral the next day, and I went the next day and the next morning to check it, and I see 0 views. Well, I mean, what was I expecting? Come on now. Anyway, for the next 7 months, I consistently uploaded and worked hard. I uploaded 3 to 4 videos consistently every single week for about 7 months. This was hard work. I was editing till 2 a.m. without my parents knowing. They thought I was asleep getting ready for school at 7 a.m. They would kill me if they found out. And this is why I got sick so often. My immune system was absolutely cooked because I was not getting proper sleep.
There were times where, you know, I've had the flu multiple times, I've had strep throat, but nothing compares to bronchitis. And because of my weak immune system now, I've had it like 4 times or so within the past several years, in comparison to 2 times within the past years before 2017, which is really ridiculous, and it's certainly not healthy at all. And I remember trying to force myself to make uploads and trying to force myself to not cough while I was trying to make the uploads, and it was extremely painful, especially if you have bronchitis for prolonged periods of times. When you cough, it feels like someone's stabbing you in the back. It's pretty bad, but obviously I didn't want to lose everything I've worked, you know, many, many months for, or later on many, many years for. I don't want to take any of those risks, so, you know, I'd be editing the videos and I'd be hearing myself cough for 60% of the video, and when I would hear myself cough, it would make me cough as well while I was editing. It was just a terrible experience trying to make those uploads while I was really sick. But I also did feel I kind of owed it to my subscribers. It wasn't just about the algorithm. I always did feel like, you know, there was a release coming up. I always felt like I owed it to them to, you know, give them the required info they needed. Of course, it's never about the ad revenue, especially because it's so minuscule. It was just about, you know, there's a release coming, there's money to be made, I need to get this info out there to these people.
But despite all this hard work sometimes just isn't enough in life. I was literally even going into the bathroom at work around 6 to 8 p.m. because that was the ideal algorithm time. You know, this was stuff that I used to believe really mattered. It really doesn't. But I used to go into the bathroom at 6 to 8 p.m. and sit on the toilet so I could upload videos there. I would sneak my laptop into there, and I got caught a few times and I got in trouble for it. But this was the lengths that I was going to try to make this work. I was working hard, doing it consistently, and it was not enough. Anyway, my mom was telling me to quit. My own parents were telling me to give up because my mom's an immigrant from Sicily. She has the old mentality of, you know, just go to school. And you know what? I get it. I don't even blame her, especially because I was making no progress. And kids in school were making fun of me, you know, because it's always cringe until it works. You know, a couple years later, when I got my first supercar, an Audi R8 in 19, those same kids started asking me for advice. But we'll get to that soon. In the meantime, I was making no progress at all. And so I felt like I was almost going to give up too, but I finally decided to pivot the content a little bit. I tried something new. Instead of reviewing sneakers and even going to lengths like going into a sewage system to try to make it funny and get attention,
I'm trying to give you guys a good review, but it's really hard because it smells like feces in here, and oh God, I see some chunks flying by of excrement.
Instead of doing all that stupid shit, I decided to try to give value to people and at the same time embrace who I really was, my true self. I was a reseller. Yes, I like sneakers, but, you know, I was getting these sneakers to make a profit on. And so I knew a lot about these technical tricks on websites. And I think the first video I posted that was kind of around this topic was for the Yeezy 350 Frozen Yellow. And that video got like triple the views of my other videos. And right there, I saw something. I was like, that worked. That worked. And I just kept doubling down on that because I noticed giving value to people was working. And that's probably what's going to work for you too. You need to find a way to give value to people based on your expertise. Whatever your area, your niche is, you need to find a way, whatever you're an expert in, you could give value to people. And this was what I was an expert in at the age of 16 years old at least. So I was teaching people how to exploit these website security flaws, aka jigs, it was known as in the community. And one of the popular ones I taught people, which really blew me up, was something I termed the multiple people jig. Basically, I noticed that on Adidas.com, they would have these splash pages, right, for getting Yeezys, and you would have to wait in a line, a waiting room. And in order to increase your chances of passing the waiting room, opening multiple tabs would not help you. And I noticed the reason for this was because they were tracking your cookies. All you had to do to increase your chances of passing the waiting room was open up a new Google Chrome user, because a new Chrome user had unique cookies. And Adidas, I guess, was not prepared for this kind of exploit. So this made a lot of people a lot of money for many years to come. That guide I made on it ended up getting like 300,000 views, but I was talking about this guide like in many videos before this as well, this trick, and I was teaching people it in a live stream as well. I was also predicting which sneakers would resell for a profit and which ones would not resell. So I was basically telling people which ones to buy to make money, which ones not to buy. Technically, what I was doing was I was telling people and giving them advice how they could make money by clicking a couple of buttons from the comfort of their own home. And consequently, I got a lot of hate for it and still get a lot of hate for it, whether it's the sneaker community or especially the Pokemon community. They hate scalpers. They absolutely want to kill me. But yeah, people would send me death threats too and just casually say, kill yourself in the comments. And obviously, I just laugh at that stupid shit now. Like, I know it's not serious. I don't care. But it's a little bit different for a 16-year-old kid. So yeah, that was some stuff I had to experience. But I had pretty thick skin anyway. It didn't bother me much. I was basically the pioneer of making reselling a lot more acceptable in the space. And so little by little, more people started gravitating towards my content. And while everyone was hating on me publicly, behind closed doors, they were all taking my advice. And this was something that I learned to embrace. I embraced being the villain. I embraced being the bad guy because I knew what I was doing was right to a degree. I knew I was helping people who needed to make a little bit of extra money at the expense of people who had enough money to buy luxury shoes and luxury collectibles and whatnot. Eventually, people were so grateful for me that once during a live stream, when I first decided to do a live stream on the Yeezy Blue Tint 350 release, some people would donate as much as $300 to me. I remember one guy in particular donated that much money to me, and it made me very emotional in the moment. I was so shocked and caught off guard how someone would want to donate money to me for just, live streaming and giving some tips and helping them out. And so it's not the money that gave me a high and dopamine, but it was what his willingness to give me money for no reason, what I saw it as, no reason, what that implied, because it implied that I had made this guy a lot more money to the point where he just had $300 extra and he felt generous enough to give it back to me. And he wasn't alone. There were tons of people just casually donating like $5 to $10 to me. And this was definitely the live stream that changed my life. It was a 24-hour stream. YouTube only saves 12 hours of it. So I don't have the best 12 hours, unfortunately, where that all was happening. But I have some of it still, and I think we peaked around like 3,000 viewers. Now, in some of my later live streams, we peaked around like 6,000 to 7,000 viewers, which is crazy. Like, those are average clavicular viewers now. But yeah, that just goes to show how lucrative this scene was just a couple of years ago. Anyway, I felt very undeserving of these donations I was getting. I felt very uncomfortable, to be totally honest. I just wanted to help people, and I wasn't asking for anything in return, but they just kept sending money. And I guess they liked that I was coming off as humble, and it literally made them want to send me more money. And I realized then and there that my passion was not to fly planes and be an astronaut. It was not to make money. It was not sneakers. My passion was just helping people. That's what gave me a high. Where are we going? Going to give rise to the homeless. It's about to be lit.
up from the Bronx?
My nigga, I'm Keith. You wanna go for a ride, bro?
Yeah, listen. Yo, you ever been in one of these?
Nah, man, this shit bad, man.
Yeah, it's dope, right?
It's what the car is, man.
Even when we're up against the wall.
Fuck it, man. Like, you got nothing to lose. You could take all the risks, too, now. You could take big risks. Oh, why? You gotta do a deal or something? Oh, probation you have. Yeah.
I just had such a passion and a genuine desire to want to make people's lives better. And whether it was through sneakers or whatever the heck I was doing, that's just what I fell in love with. And so from that day forward, after that live stream, I continued the flight lessons a little longer, but my heart was in the YouTube channel because it was here that I was helping a lot of people. And from this point forward, my motivation was never about materialism. It was never about trying to make more money. It was always just like this weighing duty that I felt over me, like this responsibility that I had to this community. It felt like I owed these people. It was my job and my duty as a man to serve them to the best of my abilities, and like they depended on me. And that's why I worked so hard. It was never for money, honestly. Like at this point in my life, I'm not materialistic at all. I know, ironic, right? Anyway, I continued building up the YouTube channel up to 240,000 subscribers, where it's at today. Little by little, the tides began shifting in the community and reselling became a lot more accepted. But as this niche grew in popularity, these new products called cook groups and auto checkout box started popping up, and my community, because they saw how much I cared about them, started begging me to create a cook group of my own. And for a while I declined because I felt like it was too much of a responsibility, and I didn't see myself as maybe being a leader in that moment. But then I came to the realization that whether I liked it or not, I was already leading a massive community.
19. Be on the lookout for racing vehicles. 27 in pursuit.
I came to this realization after I was giving free promo to other cook group owners, literally just as a favor. I didn't charge them money or anything because I didn't know shit about business. I was a 16 to 17-year-old kid who didn't know anything about business, and I was giving this free promo out to these people, and they were making thousands of dollars from their cook groups, people joining through my sign up. And I was seeing the work that these people were doing, and I was starting to disagree with a lot of the posts they were making, the resale analysis they were making. And I felt partly responsible for that because I recommended them to people. And so it was like a hold my beer kind of moment. And I was like, okay, fine, I'll start my own group because I care a lot more about these people and I feel like I could do a much better job. So on my 18th birthday, literally on my birthday, I started building out the Discord myself. I started getting everything ready, and then I launched it publicly in December of 2018. And it was an instant hit, to say the least. It literally sold out within seconds. I had it pretty limited to about like 400 or 800 spots or something like that, and it literally sold out instantly. It crashed the entire Patreon website, and Patreon sucks ass, by the way. I'll get into that in a second, but that was the authentication platform I used to use way back in 2018 and 2019 before WAP was a thing. But I started it at $14.99 per month, and I grandfathered in members at that rate because of their early belief in me, and I wanted to reward that early belief. So to this day, we still have tons of members, hundreds of members from 2018 to 2019 because they never wanted to cancel. They loved the product so much, they never wanted to cancel. And every month following that, I raised the price, $23.99, then $38.99, $43, then $48, then $53, and finally at $58.99, which was close to where my top competitors were priced. And the reason I was raising the price was because every single time I did a restock, I was reinvesting the money to improve the Discord group, because it started off at $14.99 at just a basic group with site lists, my information, some basic monitors that I rented. But when I started getting money, then I was able to leverage that money to start making real competitive advantages that made my group superior to every other group. I started hiring unique developers that were outside the space, giving us unique exploits. To be honest, from that day forward, I did not pay attention in class at all. I would spend lunch with my teachers reviewing concepts because that's when I tended to have more time, because around 9 to 11 a.m. it was the most active for my business. I had to be ready for drops. I had to be making drop guides. I had to make sure the monitors were on point. I had to make sure the developers were doing what they were supposed to be doing. And in general, just managing a community of a bunch of mostly young men, a lot of teenagers too, which comes with a lot of unique and funny situations, you know, as well. There's a lot of funny situations that comes with that I did not expect. But managing a massive community like that during those hectic drop hours, which was always during a lot of my important classes like math and physics, so I wouldn't know shit about what we were doing in class. And I still had to make sure I would get good grades, because if I didn't get good grades, if I didn't get A's and B's, my parents would take away my camera. I remember one time I snuck out of the house to go hang out with a girl, and I didn't answer my mom's phone calls when she was calling me because I was, hanging out with the girl. And then I got home and I was grounded, but they knew how to get to me. They knew how to ground me. It wasn't by, keeping me from going out. They knew I wouldn't care about that. They took away my camera. They knew that's what would get to me. So this is why it was so important for me that I got good grades. Not because I gave a f*** about college. I ended up going to college mostly to make my mom happy, but I didn't give a shit. I remember I was in physics class, for example, when the SB Pigeon Dunk load dropped, and I had to make sure I was online because this was a very profitable drop, and I also had to send a secret early link to them just at the right time, because if I sent it too early, it would leak outside of the group. Leaking was a big thing in this business. If you sent it too early, people would share it to other competing businesses, other competing groups, and they would get it. So I would have to send it at just the right time, just before the drop, so it couldn't leak outside of my group, but all my members would have access to it. Hold on, pause. I have like a million funny stories about leaking, because whether it was them leaking my Nike sneakers early info, whether it was leaking links or variants or anything like that, we would ban people publicly in the server, and they'd basically get excommunicated from not just my group, but no group would allow them, because it's like getting your name blacklisted, so everyone would know if you're a leaker. So this was a pretty big thing in the business, and no group or person wanted to be associated with leakers, because this was something that was really frowned upon. This is like a big deal in the community.
Tell Mike it was only business. I always liked him. He understands that. Excuse me, sir.
Anyway, a funny story that I'll share is one time, me and another cook group owner who's a friend of mine, we decided to team up and send out a bait link to take down this app that we suspected was stealing a lot of our information, and they were. So we put out a bait link and they sent it out to their users. And at the last second, we told everyone, we're like, hey, that was a fake link to try to trap this app into sending a fake link out. And the app sent the fake link out, never the real one, and they were f***ed, and all their users were waiting on the wrong link. There was a lot of collateral damage from this too. Like a bunch of YouTube streamers that would steal too would be posting this fake link too, and all their people got up from it too. So yeah, stealing no good, don't be stealing. Basically, the SB Pigeon Dunk Low, you had to buy this keychain in order to access the drop, and then at a certain time they would allow those people to purchase. But my developer, one guy I was paying a lot of money to, his name was Mitch, he found a way to scrape a secret link which would allow people without the keychain to access it early. And so that's what we did. We gave them the early link. They cleared the stock just in time. Everyone outside my community was very pissed off. They paid for these keychains and they didn't get access to the drop. But, it is what it is. Survival of the fittest. And it was at this moment when people started recognizing that, wait a second, this isn't just some YouTubers group. Endurance was no longer just some washed YouTubers group. Endurance was a force to be reckoned with. Endurance was a serious business because this kid was pouring all his money that he was making right back into it and hiring these random developers that the community hadn't even seen, finding these connections and giving members true competitive advantages that these other groups were not able to do or just didn't care to do. And so even though I was raising the price every single restock once a month when I would restock, even though the price was going up, it would still sell out every single time within under a minute because the product was getting better and better. Some of these competitive advantages revolved around technical bypasses for website security. For example, Shoe Palace used to have a timer you needed to wait for until you could add a shoe to cart. One of my developers, Jimmy, found a way to bypass that, allowing members to get infinite pairs on limited releases, aka an infinite money glitch, and nobody else had this. This was Endurance exclusive. Jimmy developed this just for us. Today, one of our exclusive bypasses is a Qit bypass. I don't know if you've ever been on a concert ticket website and you tried to purchase concert tickets, but you'll see there's a waiting room you have to wait in. That's from a platform called Qit, and that platform is used for a lot of different types of products, sneakers being one of them. And my Bot Gargantua product that I'll explain later down my journey, that generates Qit bypass links. Basically, it mass enters a bunch of tasks, 1,000 tasks, into a waiting room, and one of those passes a lot sooner than the others, and then it generates a bypass link. You click the link, and you bypass the whole waiting room. So instead of waiting an hour in a waiting room, you just pass it instantly, allowing you to check out the limited item before the general public, who has to wait 2 to 3 hours for the waiting room to be up. It is a pretty lucrative bypass, and I'm surprised it still works to this day. A funny story, a retailer, before they fixed their affiliate program, they were allowing affiliate links for limited products, and so I attached an affiliate link to the end of the bypass links, and I made over $10,000 by literally clearing their stock from a security flaw. Could you imagine that? Making $10,000 by in a store. Could you imagine that? They paid me to them. Isn't that great? These are just some of the examples of the many different technical bypasses we had, but we also did the main things that our competitors also did. Things like having monitors, release guides for products, software like Chrome extensions to help you check out faster, all these kinds of things. A bot that would automatically generate accounts on food websites like Raising Cane's, so you could get free Raising Cane's on your birthday, even though it wasn't really your birthday. The bot would just generate a fake birthday, 2 weeks from now. But all this stuff, all these things we were doing were technically legal. There were some gray areas that I won't mention in this video. There still are some semi-sketchy things, but the real gray area was when I started bribing people.
Look, I know you're not following what I'm saying anyway, right? That's okay, that doesn't matter. The real question is this: was all this legal? Absolutely fucking not.
Took me in for questioning, but they couldn't charge me. They had no proof I was even behind the wheel.
I started bribing people at retailers like Kith, and a big one was Nike. I still obviously have my Nike sources, and basically they give me exclusive information that is not supposed to be known to the public. Kith, for example, was notorious for having very, very secretive early links, and an early link is very important to have because it saves you precious seconds to get a limited product. Instead of having to search for the sneaker when it drops, you're already on the link and you just have to refresh it. And every second matters on these limited drops, whether you're trying it manually or if you're using a bot, because a direct link is more efficient than using keywords. At least at that time. Later, bots changed a little bit. But my point is, early links were very valuable. They would get leaked everywhere. We talked about leaking already. But this was a very valuable thing, and you couldn't just scrape the early link on Kith. A lot of Shopify websites, you can create a script to web scrape the early links from the back end of the Shopify site, but Kith was one that was heavily protected, and you couldn't do that. They knew what they were doing. And so I had to pay someone who worked at Kith, like literally an inside source, to give me this link, and then I would give it to my members. Obviously, he was not only risking his job, but a lot of legal trouble that went along with it too. Similarly with Nike, I pay someone at Nike, well, multiple people now, but I was paying one person at Nike to give me exclusive early information for these things called shock drops. And these shock drops, I don't know if you've ever seen them before, but they're supposed to be surprises. And in general, if you know about a surprise before the surprise happens, you always have an advantage. Imagine knowing about a big event, like imagine knowing the Powerball tickets before the Powerball. You know, imagine knowing the numbers beforehand. That's what like a sneakers shock drop is. These people knew about the shock drop beforehand, and so they were ready. They had multiple devices set up, and they were ready to pounce on it. Now, one in particular, the best day of my whole life, was on the MCA Off-White Air Force One sneakers stash.
No. My Ferrari was white like Don Johnson's in Miami Vice, not red.
Now, you see, a sneaker stash shock drop is a little bit different from a regular shock drop because you have to be in a specific location in order to cop. And this time, not only did I give them the specific time and day it was going to occur on to be ready at this time, but I also gave them the exact coordinates of where they would have to be. But here's the catch. They didn't have to be there physically. You see, with a software called iTools, which we later made our own version of, but at the time, in 2019, we were recommending people use iTools. You could spoof the location on your mobile device, like your iPhone, to appear anywhere in the world. And so I gave them the coordinates to spoof to. They spoofed to the location of the MCA museum, and then at the exact time it went live, all of my members were able to easily cop this $150 sneaker and then resell it for $2,000 each. Most people ended up getting multiple. So imagine that, making $2,000 to $6,000 profit in literally minutes from my early info, just because you listened to my advice at what time something was going to be. You made sure you were at your computer at that time. You made sure you copy and pasted coordinates into your location spoofer that you spent $15 on, and then you make $6,000. These are the types of nuanced opportunities that are out there in the internet, but a bunch of f***ing idiots are telling you to day trade, and you think that's the only way to do it. There's a lot more ways to make money online, guys. Trust me, reselling is just one of them. Anyway, the reason this was the best day of my life was because people started messaging me tons like, dude, this is life-changing money. I'm paying off my medical bills with this. I'm paying off student debt with this. You know, I'm buying my dream car. All these kinds of messages, and people were just so grateful and thankful to me. And the main reason why this was the best day was because it came after a couple of weeks after the worst day of my life. And man, like I remember the worst day of my life like it was yesterday. Basically, I was paying for a monitor for the Off-White website, and this monitor was working. People were catching Off-White restocks for other products, and I was relying on it. And as the MCA Off-White Air Force One drop was approaching, I had the early link, and I sent it to the developer. I was like, make sure you're monitoring this, so we're ready. We were all on the same page, ready for the drop. And I was expecting the monitor to work, and for some reason, it didn't. For some reason, I didn't get the notification inside my group for it. And you got to understand why this was such a big problem. This was a $2,000 opportunity for people. $2,000 is life-changing money, and a lot of people also figured they could get multiple, so they're thinking like they just missed out on $6,000. And they had paid for my product thinking that I was monitoring the website. And so they were depending on me. They depended on me over another person's group, another inferior group. They depended on me, and I failed them. I failed these people that looked up to me so much. These people that believe in me. I failed them. Now, I wasn't directly responsible for it. You know, to this day, I still expect foul play from the developer, but I suspect that because he gave me the excuse that he changed the webhook. You know, he accidentally messed up the webhook. But I suspect foul play because he knew I had a big community. I think he wanted that notification kept private. But my community went from loving me the day before and looking up to me to literally hating on me and shitting on my business and unsubscribing and just talking a lot of shit and sending me death threats that same night. Not everyone. A lot of people still believed in me, but all of this happened. And while all my friends were downstairs, this was prom weekend, by the way. Prom weekend. I was at a house celebrating with all my friends. While all my friends were downstairs celebrating, drinking, and partying and making memories for the rest of their life, I was upstairs having a full-blown panic attack. And it's not because of the money. It's because of these people depended on me. They looked up to me. And I know that that's life-changing money. I know what it means, the $2,000 to $4,000 to $6,000, what that is to an average person. I know what that is. And so I had this opportunity to make all that money for an average person, and we missed it. And my community definitely let me know. They definitely let me know. I was having a full-blown panic attack. And I never have panic attacks, ever. I'm very, very emotionally controlled. This is the only thing in my life that was really just, even now I'm getting emotional thinking about it, because you got to understand what kind of a person I am. You know, these people looked up to me and I fucking failed them. It was that day. It was that day that made the MCA Off-White Air Force One sneakers stash the best day of my life. Because that was my comeback. That was me proving to everyone that I still got it. That was me getting back up when life kicked me the fuck down. For shit that's out of your control, because that's going to happen sometimes when you're running a business and you're trying to make it in the fucking world. Stuff happens that's out of your fucking control sometimes. It just happens. That's life. And I wasn't going to let that keep me down. And some people still believed in me. And all those people who still believed in me, weeks later, they were rewarded. And that's why that was the best day of my fucking life. The same fucking shoe. That's why it was the best day of my life. I made so many people so much money. And everyone who doubted me was proved wrong after that. Since then, I've added more Nike sources as well. But that original Nike source that I've worked with, right now I'm working with two in particular, but that original Nike source that I was working with who gave me that information, he was a close friend as well, and he mysteriously passed away at a very young age. I will eventually make a video what I think happened with him and why I'm also at risk. Until the recent couple of years, I was not a good CEO at all. You know, I was just a teenager who didn't know business. I was a teenager who was good at my craft and genuinely cared about helping people. I wasn't a good CEO. Just like a lot of you guys are not CEOs, a lot of you guys didn't go to business school or whatever, and you don't need to be. And so I was very hands-on. I was trying to do all these tasks myself. I rarely delegated anything because I was a perfectionist and I wanted to make sure that everything went 100% right. And this is something that a lot of you guys are going to deal with as future business owners because, you know, we care about our business. We want everything done right to a T. And like even restaurant owners deal with this too. They have trouble delegating out tasks because it's hard to trust people. But as an entrepreneur, you need to trust people. You have to delegate tasks because you can't be everywhere at once. And if you can't be everywhere at once, you can't focus on scaling the business. I was not a good CEO, and consequently, I was doing all the hands-on work myself. And because of that, I had to sacrifice normal social life. I was not going to parties my friends were going to. I was distracted at family gatherings. I was always on my phone. My uncles and aunts would be like, "What are you doing always on that phone? You're always on that phone." In hindsight, like, they were right, but, you know, you have to understand, I just cared so much about my business and my people, and I didn't know how to delegate properly. I was too much of a perfectionist. Yeah, you have to understand that I wasn't a workaholic for the money. The money wasn't my motivation. It's like I just felt this duty, this looming duty over my head to serve these people to the best of my abilities. I remember almost crying on my 21st birthday because I literally spent my entire 21st birthday in my room, in my dorm at college, literally just doing a bunch of work, solving a bunch of tedious problems that would come up for my business. And I just realized that day what kind of a prison I had built myself in. My first girlfriend, too, didn't get the attention she deserved. And I felt a lot of guilt about that because she would always be really sad that I wasn't able to spend a lot of time with her. She was always begging me to spend more time with her, and I just always had way too much work to do. And eventually this guilt started to eat at me a lot, and I finally decided to break up with her, literally for no other reason. Like, she was a great girl. You know, she was great in every single way possible, but I just felt so much guilt over not being able to be there for her. I just didn't have any time for it because I couldn't be a good CEO. Now, later in life, you know, I figured out how to properly manage my time as a CEO. And so now she still sends me some emails trying to rekindle, but unfortunately now I'm in a position where there's other women in my life, and so I still decide not to engage. I don't reply to anything because I don't think that would be right to her. I loved what I did, but my life got a lot better in more recent years as I learned how to properly delegate as a CEO. Anyway, throughout this earlier time, the niche started rising a lot in popularity. The industry was really booming, and more people began starting groups, and that's where I experienced my first episodes of Betrayal. And so one of my former staff and friends decided to start an F&F group. And I didn't think much of it because my guard was down. This was my friend, and he asked me beforehand if I minded if some people that he would help as part of his job in my group, he was an in-store helper, he would give in-store advice, if he could, you know, add them to an F&F group because he regularly talked to them, and I allowed it, not thinking much of it. Well, he later turned this into a paid group, and consequently, he ended up poaching some of my members. Now, this didn't affect me because my product had so much more demand than supply anyway, but nonetheless, it still left a bad taste in my mouth. His name is Garrett, by the way, and Garrett started his entire business this way, and he even met his developer, Brian, inside of my group as well. So, you're welcome. Yeah, I made your career, Garrett. Garrett, do you remember you thanked me for the profit I made you in my group and you were able to buy that nice truck? You know, I'm happy your family has a great life now, at least, and I don't have any hate towards you, but I know your true character. I know your true character, Garrett. Another similar situation I ran into was one of my highest staff members asked me for a very large raise. And when he asked me for the raise, it's not that I didn't want to give him the money, it's that red flags started going off. You know, something seemed a little bit suspicious, and my suspicions ended up being right. So I still decided to give him the raise anyway. And so, even though I gave him the raise, at the end of the month, after he siphoned every last penny he could from me, him and another staff member inside of my group decided to launch a competing business, and he left his role in my group without any notice. Literally just at the last second, just, oh yeah, my term's done, yep, I'm out. No warning or anything. He siphoned every last penny he could from me, and he started a competing business. That business today has zero revenue, completely in the gutter, and the other staff member, his name was Brandon, aka Kaizen, or Kaizen, however you pronounce it. He actually got addicted to gambling and ended up trying to scam some of my members in my group. So that's unfortunate for him. And Clemsy, he just plays video games mostly, doesn't really have any motion, and he would have been making a lot of money with me, but that door is closed now, my friend. But the most severe betrayal I experienced was when I started my other product, which I began building around 2020, and this was an auto checkout bot, Gargantua AIO. And I was also making another product, a B2B product, which was for anti-bot API rentals, which I'll explain in a second, but I can't give too many details on. You see, an auto checkout bot is used to automatically purchase very limited items that would otherwise be very difficult to get manually. This was software that you would put a link into or add keywords to, and it would try to purchase one or many items very, very quickly. And even if there was bot protection on websites, these bots would bypass those protections, and that's where my other company comes in, which I'll explain a little bit later. Anyway, the thing with bots, it wasn't just like anyone could download this software. Most of these bots were very limited. We were following the same structure as Nike, where Nike would release limited sneakers to create hype. Developers were releasing limited bot keys to create hype for their bot. And it was absolutely genius the way this setup worked. This honestly deserves a whole documentary in itself, but I'll break down the most interesting stuff in a nutshell. So imagine it like this. You need a login to access a certain software, but only so many logins exist. That login is what's known as a bot key, and people buy and sell these bot keys. And so a bot developer might decide to release 100 keys for $300. And you might think, oh, he's just making a little bit of money. But behind closed doors, he's making way more than that, because publicly he's releasing those 300 keys or 100 keys, whatever I said. But because there was so much more demand than supply for these bot keys, there was a resale market then for these bot keys, and people would resell the keys in places like Botmart, a place to buy and sell keys where there were some middlemen, or even WAP actually made a platform, which is the authentication platform I use today for my products. And you probably also see a bunch of course-selling grifters using WAP.com too, but this is actually where they made their start. Yes, WAP that you know, they actually made their start as a middleman for reselling bot keys. So without this industry, WAP probably wouldn't exist at all. Anyway, there was a market for these limited bot keys, and the way these bot developers were making a lot of money, they would backdoor these keys through backdoor group buys to these groups mostly based in Asia, in countries like Singapore, Korea, Japan, so it was in a different language and a little bit more obfuscated and harder to expose. And it was all done very secretively behind closed doors. And they would try to sell these bot keys for like $3,000 to $4,000 to the owner per key, by the way. So these are like $10,000 to $100,000 transactions going on, and then the bot owner, like the group owner of the backdoor group would then distribute them to the backdoor group members for a little bit below market price, so they would still be saving a little money. Maybe he would sell them for like $6,000 to $7,000 per key. And a lot of really big bots were doing this, like Kodai, Balco, Cyber. There's a bunch I'm forgetting, but basically my point is the bot community was very, very lucrative because this was very, very sophisticated software that, you know, even the types of developers that work on Instagram and these very, very smart developers who make billion-dollar companies, they even wouldn't be able to make this stuff because there's a lot of nuanced type of experience you need that you literally only get from being in this community. So yeah, this was like some high-level software, and you would have to reverse engineer these anti-bots, and it was a lot of complex stuff. So this was like very expensive and valuable software, especially at the time. Anyway, so I decided to start making my own auto checkout bot and building my own team of developers. I had some computer science experience, so I could oversee the project, but I wasn't experienced enough to work at their kind of level. Besides, I was focused on the more business aspect and the marketing aspect and managing the community as a whole. And this is like 2020. I'm starting around 19 to 20 years old, a little bit more naive, and I have been making over $1 million in profits, so I had money to burn. And you just gotta understand, at this time in my life, I'm like 18, 19 years old, and money was just coming in like crazy. And to the point, I just got completely desensitized to the money coming in. I remember, like, I had $1 million cash, liquid, in my bank account, and it was just no big deal, you know? I didn't know what to do with the money, and I didn't care about the money either, because I was just like, I was fulfilling my duty every day. That's why I was working so hard, you know? The money was just coming in. I wasn't even trying to make the money. The money was just coming, and I was just trying to do my job. But yeah, it was insane. I didn't even know what to do with it all. Imagine you're 19, like 18, 19 years old, and money is just coming in crazy.
Due fianchi, la mattina nasce il sole, entra odio ed esce amore, dandomi cori.
And I learned the hard way that you need to keep a very, very close eye on developers you hire. If you don't have computer science experience, yeah, be careful hiring developers for projects. Luckily, I had the experience, but even that wasn't enough to get finessed. You know, I still got finessed. And the way I got finessed was they started working on a project without me knowing and not putting in the same level of effort into my project, despite me paying them for their time for my project. So really, instead of them, you know, having to go work at a certain job or whatever, I was paying them, but instead of working on my stuff, they're spending a lot of their time working on other stuff. And this was a pretty bad thing, you know. This was pretty fucked up, and you would understand it if you were the one shelling out the money. And I lost $70,000 through this process of just giving these two people money, because these two people, one of them probably wouldn't have done this on his own, but the other was very, very intelligent in terms of like psychological manipulation, and he managed to manipulate the other one onto his side and doing it. You know, the other one was very, very intelligent in like an autistic kind of way, but this other one was also practically intelligent too, and he managed to manipulate that one into starting that project with him, and it was just very unfortunate. So I ended up losing $70,000 through them.
What do you want from me? I give you the APIs. I sent you like the entire shit this morning. Like, I've been helping Sinister for months.
Yes,
I've been like,
and you tried to betray me behind my back. After everything I've helped you with...
How did I betray you? Bro, how did I... I'm calling you to give you lessons and you treat me like this?
Yes, I'm telling you everything that I've discovered that you've been doing behind my back. And I have all the concrete evidence.
What have I been doing? What have I been doing behind your back? What have I been doing at Athena?
You
tell me what I do at
have been
Athena.
helping develop Athena, Omar, and you're a part of the project.
And you feel absolutely certain of this?
Omar, I have the evidence. I don't need to feel anything.
Okay, alright.
What is this?
Huh?
Who's Jasper?
How the f*** would I know? I don't work at Athena.
Omar, what's your Instagram name, man?
Hot Bear 6567.
Why would somebody make their name Jasper? Is this some wild coincidence, Omar?
No, it's not a coincidence.
So then what is it?
But that's not me. I guarantee you that's not me. I
Jasper is not you.
That's not me. I guarantee you that's not me. I don't even know who, like, fucking Andrew Bellucci is. I'm not part of Athena.
What is
like,
this?
I'm actually not
what
part
is
of
this?
Athena.
You're gonna go bye-bye. Who are you talking to, Omar?
I'm talking to Sealed.
Why would you be talking
Athena.
to Sealed, Omar?
Because we're all developers.
Yes. And why is he gonna go? Where is he gonna go from?
Dude, this is not cool.
But luckily, my lead developer was not like that at all. You're still my good friend today, and we still work together to this day. So we continued the project without them, and we ended up eventually making profit, but not until first having spent over $200,000 to $300,000 in expenses. And that period definitely took a toll on me a little bit, mentally, because it was a lot of extra work I had to do because I lost those two people. Today, we've now adapted the bot to focus more on raffles like the Union raffle that just went down, as well as sweepstakes. Sweepstakes are a very lucrative side hustle. This one guy, his name's Greg in my group actually, he made like $100,000 in a single year just off of sweepstakes. That's another very lucrative online side hustle. Like I said, guys, there's millions of opportunities out there on the internet. Just don't fucking day trade. But more importantly, aside from the bot eventually becoming profitable and making me money, it helped a lot of people make money in the ways I just explained. And also, later in 2022, on the Off-White Green BKM Off-White drop on the Off-White website, in 2022, you see they added a website queue, a waiting room, and we found a way to bypass this waiting room by sharing cookies. Instead of bypass links that we used for QIT, we had bypass cookies for the Off-White website, and you just needed to add these cookies manually into Chrome, and you would bypass the waiting room, and it was an absolutely massive cookout. We're kind of expecting the same thing to happen for the upcoming Off-White Jordan 1 drop, assuming they drop on the website. But yeah, we came a long way from missing the blue Off-White Air Force One on the website to bypassing the website with my bot that I made years later. You see, that's what happened, guys. Like, life can knock you down, and then a couple years later, you come back even stronger. We went from missing it, and that being the worst day of my life, to then a couple years later, new colorway comes out, and my software that I created bypasses the queue, allowing tons of people to get the shoe. It all comes full circle, guys. Keep your eye on the end game. Anyway, the other product that I alluded to that I was working on was a B2B product, and this was Antibot API rentals. This was for tackling antibots like Perimeter X, Cloudflare, Akamai, and more. And the reason this was a very good B2B business was because a lot of bots did not want to or simply could not deal with reverse engineering these heavily sophisticated antibots, because these are billion-dollar companies, multi-billion-dollar companies like Perimeter X. I think they were acquired now by Human or whatever, but these were billion-dollar companies with tons of sophisticated developers, and it's literally meant to not be reverse engineered and solved, but we were still able to do it. And so instead of these other bot teams wanting to try to solve it on their own, they figured it's more worth their time and money to just pay $3,000 to $10,000 per month, depending on how many requests they send, depending on how many users they have, in order to just, use my API. And this way, they don't have to worry about dealing with these antibots. So think of it like they decide to pay $3,000 to $10,000 per month in exchange for not having to deal with these types of things that would otherwise be a huge headache for them and probably destroy their entire business. And we had a lot of bots that were paying for these anti-bot APIs. And like I said, this is a big business. For one single bot, one customer could be paying $3,000 to $10,000 per month, depending on how big their user base is. Now, all the payment that I hypothetically accepted for this business was in cryptocurrency, and I'll explain why that is. You see, an anti-bot API, while I hope and always intended for it to be used for auto checkout bots and just to be used on these limited kind of drops for limited sneakers. Of course, it could also be used for very illegal and very harmful things. For example, you'll know that Target has Shape security on their login, and we had a Shape API. Well, you'll know that a long time ago, Target was at the center of an absolutely massive data breach, which caused a lot of harm to a lot of people. For the record, I don't condone black hat hacking to any degree at all, and we're gonna leave that part of my life at that. Throughout this time running the bot and the group, I was also selling other resources for sneaker resellers like SMS pre-verified accounts, Outlook emails, proxies, and while some of these made me a couple $100,000 to $10,000 in profit, it was never my main source of income. But the reason I bring them up is just to explain to you how you can easily monopolize a lot of these niche, unregulated areas just because they're too small for the government to really care about. Also, for anyone wondering about YouTube revenue, it's quite literally next to nothing compared to my main sources of income. The only reason I continue doing YouTube is because I genuinely enjoy helping people out for free, and it also acts as a pretty good sales funnel too. But yeah, even when I was making like tens of thousands of average views per video, you know, occasionally getting 100K views, even then at most I was making like a couple 10,000 a year. It was really nothing in comparison to everything else. Around 2022 to 2023, this is where I became pretty good as an actual CEO.
Sympathy advised to suspect with last seen heading south through Century Square. Supervisor communicates 1 squadron set up to the suspect. Consider call, no code 6.
Not only was I now good at my craft, but I began learning how to actually properly run a business, learning proper marketing strategies, and more. The sneaker and resale community absolutely prospered up to 2020, and during 2020 to 2022, it was insanely prosperous because of the stimulus and the production issues, because a lot of stuff was in lower supply because of all the production halts due to COVID-19, and that's good for my niche because if there's something with higher demand and lower supply, that's opportunities for my customers to be able to make money. So we were reselling like PS5s, Xboxes, NVIDIA graphics cards during like the crypto rise and all too, and just because there was a graphics card shortage in general, the chip shortage, we were reselling things like pools, trampolines. There was just way more opportunity from 2020 to 2022, and while initially COVID-19 really scared me, like I was gonna lose my whole business because everyone was in a panic for a little bit of a period, you know, so I lost tons of subscribers around like that early March to April period, but we adapted very quickly. In business, you always need to adapt or perish. We adapted very quickly, and actually COVID-19 ended up helping us a lot. We benefited a lot from COVID-19. All my customers made way more than ever because we adapted to the times, and I am proud to say that we never facilitated any reselling of necessity items, only non-necessity items. We never agreed to monitor any kinds of like, you know, hand sanitizers or toilet rolls or anything like that. Any necessities, we didn't engage in that behavior. It was only luxury goods still, like a pool, trampoline, NVIDIA graphics cards, stuff like this. But yeah, COVID-19 ended up benefiting us. So it just goes to show, you know, when life throws stuff at you, if you adapt, it could actually end up benefiting you. Anyway, those were all great times, but thank God I started improving as a CEO, because after that period, 2023 to 2024, the money started drying up. The stimulus was over, and inflation really began taking its toll on the general public. Inflation being the invisible tax, the tax that people don't realize they're paying. And yeah, it really hindered the luxury goods market. People didn't have disposable income like they did before, and so there was just a lot less opportunity in the market, and all of this was just beyond my control. 2024, I watched my revenue decline a lot, And it was very, very difficult to watch this happen, especially because I was working overtime. I was putting in more work than usual and getting way less results. That's something that's going to happen to you sometimes in business. I was literally getting worse results despite working way more. And sometimes that's what happens. You know, there's unchangeable circumstances beyond your control. And that's why I follow Stoic philosophy a lot. You know, you have to just accept that some things are beyond your control and not let them phase you. So it definitely hurt to see my revenue decline during that period of 2024. And it was scary too, because, you know, as an entrepreneur, you have no safety net, you know, like, and it was in terminal decline. Like, it was rapidly declining at one point. And I saw all my competitors selling off their businesses too. I was approached and they were trying to get me to sell my business. And I knew I never wanted to do that, because the main competitor that was acquiring everyone is some dog group that is VC funded. They got like millions in venture capital funding, and they are so tapped out of the market that all their members are missing out on opportunities. They're being misled on resale. You know, like, they're losing their members' money. They're just so tapped out and washed. And I just knew, for my members' sake, I could never merge with them. I could never let that happen, because they would suffer so much if they were to ever be a part of that group that's acquiring so many groups. Some of you probably know what that group is, but yeah, I never wanted that to happen, because it's such a dog group. That's what happens usually in industries when you just pump money into a business. You end up with a really shit product that eventually is going to die out once the investments stop, because I'd imagine their churn rate is very, very high. But because they have so many big investors, they could just do infinite advertising. And so I locked in, and I decided I was going to make my bones. You know, that's the choice you have. You could either give up, or you can make your bones when times get tough. And I decided I was going to make my bones. I improved my skills as a CEO, as a marketer. I was working double time. I never slacked off. Even when I was taking girls on trips, I was working while they were, like, you know, getting ready, putting on their makeup and stuff, or sleeping at the beach. I was doing work. All the while, I also took up my first amateur Muay Thai fight, real fight camp, and real weight cut. And I did it because I wanted to prove to myself that, you know, while there's a lot of stuff going on that's out of my control, if I could suffer through this, if I could do this, then I could survive this, and I could save my business from terminal decline. And I did it. Since the lows of 2024, I've brought back my business up 50%. Actually, February 14th, just a couple of days ago, we hit a new high for the first time. It was a first high in like over a year. So this was like a really, really big victory. Not just for me, but it's a victory for my employees, people I still get to employ and pay money to. It's a victory for the family inside of Endurance and Gargantua that I still have the privilege of serving to the best of my abilities. And yeah, it's just, you know, it just feels really good to get over a big challenge like that in life. And it's not over. You know, the war's not over. Times are still not great. They're still not as they were before, but we definitely got out of the scariest of times. And soon you'll experience these things too, because soon you'll be making millions too, but not until you place the cornerstone. And what is that? Placing the cornerstone is dropping your ego and your arrogance. Before you make millions, you need to first make thousands of dollars. You're not above it. You have to make thousands of dollars. Stop trying to jump the gun and day trade through these course selling grifters, get rich quick schemes, pump and dumps. You need to drop it. You're not above that. You're not above making, you know, a couple $1,000s and then making the millions. You need to first make a couple $1,000s, and then eventually you'll be able to leverage that money into a bigger project, and then that's when you're going to make the millions. And you need to do this outside of the structure of general safe employment, because it's going to teach you a lot of things, and it's going to test you mentally to prepare you for what it's like to really run a business. And so I encourage you to try to find some hustle online while you can. And it shouldn't just be a regular job. It should be something that's a little bit unsafe. And you need to do it without an ego. You need to do it without arrogance, because that's what's keeping a lot of you from getting rich. You're too arrogant because you think you're above it. You're not. So yeah, I mean, you heard my story. there's a lot of good in it, but there's a lot of bad too, you know? Watching your business decline definitely takes a toll on you mentally. The same way when you lose hundreds of thousands of dollars in the stock market takes a toll on you mentally. The same way when you miss out on the Off-White Air Force One MCA Off-White website drop for something that was out of your control, and your whole community that loved you decides to turn on you and you let them down. The same way when people you thought were your friends, people you thought had your back, go behind your back and scheme and plot to start competing businesses. The same way when you were a naive 13-year-old boy and you got scammed for $200 for Bread 11s. Life is gonna knock you down sometimes, but you have to decide if you're gonna get back up or not, no matter how hard it gets. I know I made my decision. I know what decisions I made. Oh, and how'd I lose the $10 million?
FBI! Boy, sit down, put your hands where they can be seen, and shut up!
Four drivers been arrested. District supervisor is en route requesting you secure the scene. Attention all units, supervisor has elevated case condition to 7. We'd like to know a little bit about you.
How'd I lose the $10 million? I didn't lose the $10 million, but I lost my ego and I lost my arrogance. And that's exactly what allowed me to put that in the title, so I can maximize the views. Or should I say, maximize the amount of people who are gonna stop waiting for tomorrow. It's been a ride. It's been a fucking ride. But we got more to go, so hit that button and stick around.